Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Mark, to you, to the board, to Pat, you and your superb team here at the museum, to everybody who has helped us develop this community treasure. And I also want to thank you for the honor that was given tonight to Dr. Graham. I first met him while I was running for mayor, trying to impress somebody I think at the Summit Club. And while I was giving my spiel, somebody else, this well-dressed gentleman, turned around and cracked something sarcastic about Obamacare, and waited to see what I would say about that. And while that wasn't the first time somebody's done that, it was the first time that somebody doing that was the beginning of a friendship, and that was really characteristic of Dr. Graham. So thank you, Julie and the family, for sharing him with this community and life, and for helping us honor him today. I also want to thank you for helping round out my day of what proved to be planes, trains, and automobiles. So my day began about 5 in the morning in New York, where I was asked to go to New York University last night and describe South Bend's patterns of innovation and what we're doing right now to grow the economy and to respond to changes in how technology is affecting people in our part of the country. And then we spent some time this afternoon looking at plans for a train to accelerate our connectedness to Chicago. So it's only fitting that we end the night here at the Studebaker Museum. And lastly, a thank you for creating an opportunity for me to spend some time with my fiance, who turned to me at dinner and said, you know, Pete, this is the first time we've actually had a sit-down dinner together in over a week. So we appreciate that too. I think the question of our time is, how does a forward-thinking city build on our past? We have learned through experience that you can't just invent sources of growth. You can't make up the future from whole cloth. It has to be constructed based on a relationship with what you already have and what you're already good at. And resisting the temptation to make something out of whole cloth, and instead finding the value of what we've got without collapsing into nostalgia and without making false promises to ourselves about being able to turn back the clock. That has been the stuff of the unique pattern of South Bend's accelerating comeback that I think is also what has drawn attention from around the country. And so it's fitting that the theme of this evening really recognizes the fact that the legacy of Studebaker wasn't about vehicles. It was about innovation. It was about growth. And the innovation and growth that we're seeing across our city, now growing in population at the fastest pace in a quarter of a century, now growing in investment to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, including in what had been very quiet and sleepy areas of town. Even the very acreage, and in some cases the very buildings that housed the Studebaker operations that were heaving with activity and then tragically silent for so long, now reanimated thanks to things like the MetroNet and the data economy, creating jobs in industries that didn't even exist when those Studebakers were rolling off the line. Turbo machinery research, things that have allowed me as a proud mayor to have a good reason to host people here in South Bend just in the last year, ranging from the CEO of Facebook to the mayor of Los Angeles, curious about what's happening here in our tradition of innovation that goes back to the Studebaker days. And so we have a chance to honor that legacy in as many ways as we know how. As Mark mentioned, we will hold our inaugural Idea Week next week, a chance to bring people together not just from around the community but from around the country to look at how we can power our community, our society, and our economy forward through the value of ideas. We'll be celebrating the past, present, and future of our city with Best Week Ever. It's our second annual event coming up right around the time of our city's birthday, and I believe this being the second one will be the best week ever. And we'll build on that going forward. You look at what's happening with technology and small business in this area and ways that we're expanding the meaning of what infrastructure is, like the Wi-Fi canopy over our downtown that now amounts to a new kind of digital infrastructure. And above all, the opportunity to be a beta city, one that embraces the kinds of risks that Dick File was telling us about. A beta city that knows that it's worth trying to take advantage of our scale, big enough to matter but small enough to try something new. We were the first city in the country to deploy dockless bike sharing at the scale that we saw here, and now cities from Seattle to Washington, D.C. have followed our lead. We have equipment that is going to use smartphones mounted on dashboards to scan the condition of roads, to predict where the potholes and the cracks and the asphalt failures are going to be. We're also going to patch the potholes that are already there, but we're trying to get ahead of the next ones. And I would remind you that the S in SR stands for State Road, and so those potholes are another matter entirely. You can still call me about them, but we're just going to be forwarding that voicemail to INDOT. I have the great honor of chairing a new task force of the United States Conference of Mayors on the subject of automation, something that is changing our lives in a way that I think really parallels the remarkable development of a carriage that could move itself without a horse. The only thing as profound as that is a car that could move itself around without a driver, which is already what is happening in the city of Pittsburgh about half the time if you pick up an Uber. There will be a day not so far from now when American cities in some parts will have signs saying, warning, some drivers in this area are human. And it'll happen sooner than we think. Here in South Bend, we've already automated part of our trash pickup trucks in order to reduce the number of employees, but also the number of injuries that are associated with something as routine as trash pickup. And that is just the very tip of the iceberg. Think about a world in which a development project isn't quite as reliant on surface parking because most people simply get a vehicle on demand. These changes are happening not only within our lifetime, but within the lifetime of some of the planning decisions we're making as we speak. And so I'm looking forward to taking shameless advantage of my position chairing this group to have its first standalone convening right here in South Bend. And you better believe one of the things I'll be talking about is the lessons that we learned from our heritage of Studebaker, not just honored in the S-shaped curve on the City of South Bend flag, not just honored in names of some of our streets, but honored, thanks to you, thanks to the people who have come here to preserve this community treasure, honored in a museum that is not a pickled artifact of the past, but a living testament to what the future might look like. That is why I am so appreciative of everybody who is part of making sure that we have this community resource. Not just about the wagons, not just about the wheels, not just about the cars, but about the ways in which risk-taking, creativity, and innovation in the finest tradition of our past will be the making of our future. Thank you.